In order to understand Nuuk, you have to forget everything you already know about how cities are formed. Here there are no river deltas, no fertile plains. What you have is something much powerful, shelter from the elements. This is Nuuk, the capital of Greenland. It lies right at the western edge of the big island of Greenland, right here. It is tucked inside this complex fjord system called Nuuk. This is a long network of deep channels carved by glaciers over thousands of years, with astonishing mountains rising up from the water. The city itself is pinned to this rocky peninsula, right at the entrance of the fjord, connecting it to the wider Labrador Sea. This location is a geographical trifecta, and I say that because, first, the fjord's towering walls protect Nuuk from the punishing winds and storms of the North Atlantic Sea. Second, these deep cold waters are phenomenally rich in marine life. Countless seals, whales, and most importantly, fish call these waters home. And third, the solid bedrock provides a stable foundation to build on, unlike the unstable permafrost found elsewhere. But the real deal breaker is the fact that these waters stay ice-free for the whole year. And that's because of the relatively warm waters that circulate around the western edge of the Greenland island. So in a region dominated by ice, that single fact of being a harbor that stays ice-free is a golden ticket. But at the same time, I don't want you to get the idea that Nuuk is far away from the ice. No, on the contrary. The Greenland Glacier is just a few kilometers away, right here. This is where the ice sheet starts. And just as a tangent, I want you to contemplate how thick this ice really is. I think not many people have a full realization of the deepness of this ice sheet. So for that, we're gonna see this map in which we can appreciate that the thickness of the ice in the interior parts of Greenland goes up to 3,000 meters. For those in the US, that would be about 9,000 bald eagles per cheeseburger, just for you to know. And just as a comparison, that would be even higher than most of the cities that are known for being in a very high elevation, such as Mexico City, Denver, or Bogota. Here's another graphic so we can better appreciate how thick the ice on Greenland really is. You see, this is the maximum thickness, which is almost 2 miles, and Nuuk would be somewhere around here. I also want you to appreciate how old the ice sheet is. Here we can appreciate that the upper layers can be up to 620 years old, and the deepest levels can go up to 90,000 years old. Just imagine. And now that you have a grasp of the full dimensions of the ice sheet, you can now better appreciate how close it is to Nuuk. Right here is where it starts, and Nuuk is right here. You see, Nuuk's metropolitan area is very small for global standards, but what it lacks in size, it makes up in complexity. Because instead of being a contiguous urban mass, the city is spread across many hills and many peninsulas. You can see that the complexity of this landscape. Every single neighborhood is separated by inlets and rocky promontories. Another feature is that water is always present. The sea, a fjord, or a bay are always in sight. Now, because of this extreme geography, the city of Nuuk has nowhere to expand. It is enclosed by all sides, by these steep hills on the east and by the fjord to the south, west, and north. This means that Nuuk cannot sprawl, unlike many other cities in the world. Instead, it can only cling, clamp, and concentrate, as you can see right here in all of these neighborhoods. Because if we tilt the image right here, we can see that there is already a very steep hill that is hindering the development of the city. If we pay attention to the layout, we can appreciate that Nuuk is a collection of neighborhoods, almost stacked on each other, as we can see right here. I think this will be better appreciated if we go to Google Street View. So let's switch to that. As you can see, this is very different from your typical city. And we are already on the very center of Nuuk. You see, this is the government building. If we were on another city in any other part of the world, the city center will feel more compact, but instead, it feels fragmented. Elevation, hills, and rocks separate every single building. Just take a look at these houses right here. This is again the government building, so you can see that we're still not far away from the city center. And you see how different it feels from any other city in the world. Another interesting feature of Nuuk is its lack of connection to any other human settlement by road. We can zoom in right here and we can appreciate that all the roads end right here. There's no other connection to the world or to any other city. All the roads finish on a hillside. Instead, movement happens by air, boat, or even helicopter. This isolation means that Nuuk has learned to be self-reliant, as there's no other major human settlement in many kilometers away. Okay, now, if we want to better understand the layout of Nuuk, we can do it with the help of this map. You see the historic core is this one. It contains many of the most important buildings in Nuuk, and as the city's population started to grow, it expanded into the neighborhood of Nuuk right here, while most recent developments have leapfrogged across the bay into the neighborhood of Kingorput. So let's go back to Google Maps to explore a little bit and see how these districts look like, as they have to adapt to the elevation of the hills. But the city is still connected by stairs and pathways that the locals have created. Now let's explore another district, maybe a newer district of Kingorput. Oh yeah, it's a very different district. We can see that we are at a much higher elevation, but the view here is astonishing. We can see these buildings and the other part of the bay. These other buildings right here. We can see that every single tower lies very far apart from each other. So yeah, these suburban expansions are not what you would find in your typical city. Instead, self-contained villages connected by road, tunnels, or paths, and in some parts even by boat, as we can see right here. Because building the classical continuous grid as in any other city would be physically impossible in a terrain such as harsh and rugged as this one of Nuuk. Every single urban development decision has to be negotiated with the harsh rock and water that defines Nuuk. Even the airport had to be built a bit far away from the city because there was no available area to build it. So in a city where weather can turn dangerous at any moment, and the outdoors is astonishingly beautiful, but at the same time unforgiving, you can ask yourself, where do people gather? Where do people enjoy their spare time? Well, the third places in Nuuk are a masterclass in creating warmth against the cold, both literally and socially. Let's start with Nuuk's boardwalk. This area is one of Nuuk's most important social spaces. In pictures like this one, you can appreciate how astonishingly beautiful the landscape is. People come here to walk, sit, and appreciate the landscape. No matter if it's summer or winter, people come here to meet their friends, to gather, to talk, and to appreciate the beauty of the landscape. Geography makes this waterfront a must too, and that's why it works as a social place. Another good example of a third place is the Katuak Cultural Center. Its undulating facade, inspired by the northern lights and the waves of the ocean, are an architectural landmark. But the real magic happens inside. It becomes the living room of the city. This is a place where people can stop worrying about the weather outside, and they can just sit, relax, and meet their friends and have a nice chat. It can also host cultural events such as theater plays and movie displays. For a more traditional experience, people can come here to the old harbor. On calm summer days, this area is bustling with life. Locals sit on the benches and maybe even venture to fish some cod on the nearby waters. It's a completely spontaneous and seasonal third place, dictated entirely by the weather of the Arctic. And the final third place that we will explore today is the Nuuk Art Museum, housed in the old colonial church complex. This is a place where local Greenlanders can come and connect with their past and identity. And as a bonus addition, during the brief summer months, almost any patch of relatively high ground and flat terrain can become an spontaneous third place. Oftentimes you will see people just contemplating the horizon, maybe contemplating the icebergs come and go on this beautiful landscape. So now you know, the city of Nuuk exists because of its geography and not despite of it. Nuuk is proof that a city doesn't need size, comfort, or ideal conditions to function. It only needs alignment with the environment. Here, geography not only shaped its city layout, it also shaped its pace, social life, and sense of purpose. And once you see that from up close, the city stops feeling unlikely and starts feeling inevitable. So this has been Awesome Third Places, a project in which I have been working for a few months already. If you want to support the work I do, you can do it through a YouTube membership or to Patreon as well. Any help will be well received and will be reinvested in the upping up the production quality.